Are you tired of watching shows that only give you general social media theory and expect you to figure out how to apply it to your own industry? Join us for this week's episode of Social Chatter, the industry's longest-running social media marketing news talk show. Not only will you learn the latest breaking news, but you'll also gain practical advice on how to apply it. Now here's your host, Karasiewicz.
Sorry about that, everyone. I was actually muted. So welcome, everyone, to Social Chatter, your weekly social media marketing news talk show. This is episode 212, joined by myself, Phil Gerbyshak, and this week's guest is Beth Granger. And for those of you who don't know Beth, I'll bring her on here in a second. You'll have a chance to actually meet her. But we have a lot of topics to talk about this week. We're going to be talking about Pinterest. We're going to be talking about updates from Instagram. We've got some Facebook updates, some YouTube updates, and even a WhatsApp update, along with some useful tools that you can start to implement in your business. Again, we're getting going a little bit late today, but sorry about that. We had a couple of technical difficulties, but the thing I want to impress upon you is, when you are running a live show, there's a lot that goes into it. A lot of times, you do have technical difficulties. Like today, for example, we couldn't get the internet to work. And so, you kind of just have to roll with the punches. Beth and I were talking about this before the show, and I think she could probably actually share some good tips as well, kind of how she's built out her efforts on LinkedIn. But I'm going to go and bring on Beth. Beth, how are you doing this week?
Hello, good morning, or
good morning.
Afternoon,
good morning,
or
good afternoon,
whatever it is.
Exactly, right? So this is Beth Granger. She specializes in, I believe it's LinkedIn, right?
LinkedIn.
So
LinkedIn training, coaching, speaking.
Definitely. So go ahead and tell viewers a little bit about yourself if they're watching live on Facebook or YouTube or listening to our podcast.
Let's see. So I'm from New York. I started actually as a graphic designer and never had a business plan when I ended up starting my business. And it sort of evolved based on people would say, oh, you can do that, help me. And one of my clients was bringing their sales team in and they said, can you teach them how to use LinkedIn? And it sent me down this path that I absolutely love. I have the patience to deal with people who are uncomfortable with technology and are afraid to click. And so I get to work with a lot of really fascinating businesses that you would never even know exist, along with the typical ones. And great.
So what's been your biggest challenge, I guess, when you get started? I mean, you mentioned, we talked about this earlier. For a lot of businesses, they need that one-on-one coaching. But what's been your biggest challenge, I guess, and how do you kind of get somebody to, overcome the obstacles that they're facing to get them, kind of take some action?
Sometimes it's just giving them the tools, and then sometimes it's sort of sitting next to them as they try it and saying, click here, literally click here. And once they do it a couple of times, I think just some people are apprehensive. They don't understand who's going to see something if I comment, if I post, if I do those kinds of things. And then people stress over stuff like I try to get people to do video, and a lot of people are not quite comfortable with that yet. Even if I say it doesn't have to be you on the screen.
Yes. So how do you get people to use video that aren't comfortable? Like any tricks, any tips you want to share?
So a couple of things. I start them off with things where it's not their face on the screen. Maybe it's a visual and they're talking about it. It's just someone hearing their voice.
Okay.
And then showing them examples of other people. And some people are just never going to do it, quite honestly. So I try to find the people who have an interest and just want to try it out.
Yeah. So when somebody how often you give somebody, I guess, to know that they're not going to do video, for example, do you kind of hey, we test a couple of shows and they kind of abandon it, or how do you work?
Well, it depends on the size of the organization too. So maybe the person I'm dealing with isn't comfortable with it, but maybe they can have a spokesperson or somebody who is.
Gotcha. It
doesn't always have to be my direct client.
Definitely. And that's one thing to remember, I think for a business is that, it doesn't have to be, for example, the CEO. It doesn't have to be the CEO. It doesn't have to be like your social media manager. It doesn't have to, it could honestly be somebody in HR if they really enjoy being on camera and they're very personable.
Exactly.
I think that's key as a business. So don't think I got to go hire somebody. Look within your company to see who you actually have that is passionate about this, because that's the best thing. They're going to be your best cheerleader, and they're going to put 200% effort into doing that and their regular job at the company.
Exactly. And we were talking before, it humanizes the brand, right? Especially if it's a large company that's people feel like they're having a conversation with somebody.
Right. And it should be that way. I mean, it shouldn't be like, oh, hey, I'm talking to a robot. I'm talking to like chatbots. Chatbots are great, except for the fact that a lot of people have a tendency to overuse them, and they take the actual customer, they take the company out of it. They basically just talk about like, oh, you're kind of chatting with our thing. Like we can kind of, now we can repurpose that person, but you still need to have real people that people know who they're connecting with. So by the way, I think I'm ready to go here. As far as topics and whatnot, where do you want to start, by the way? Because we have quite a few as well. So where do you want to go?
Where to begin? Well, I know we were talking about the YouTube comments.
Yes.
I think I'm excited about that.
So what do we?
There we go. Look at that. So to me, if you get a lot of comments, right, to be able to filter them and to make sure you see sometimes you might miss something. For the one where somebody asked a question, I like that a lot.
What do you think overall, like as far as like how do you respond to comments? I guess do you keep like a notepad and you go back to the well and say, hey, you know what? I need to go respond to all these comments at once. Do you respond to them individually? How do you work?
Well, so I don't do it on YouTube. I do it on LinkedIn Live, but it's pretty much exactly the same. I try to allot a certain amount of time right afterwards to go through the comments that are there at that time from the live broadcast. Right. And respond immediately.
Okay.
And what's really hard on that platform is it doesn't notify you about new comments. So if people watch on replay the next day, I don't notice it. So having something like this would be great.
Yeah, no, this is definitely a very useful feature. And the good thing about, I think, social media is that you'll see, for example, YouTube will implement this. And obviously this is in YouTube Studio. What will often happen is they will then take it, and if there's any utility to it, other platforms will start to implement it as well. For example, Facebook Live might implement it.
Yep.
LinkedIn Live might get to it as well.
In 3 years.
Yeah, yes. I got to say though, we talked about this last week and the last couple of weeks. A lot of times, we're kind of bagging on LinkedIn about how they're late to the party on a lot of things, but I think they've made some real big strides lately to really bring their brand, their platform, up to par, and in some cases even surpass many of the other ones that people are already using.
I agree.
Yeah, I think they're doing a fantastic job. But the bottom line is this: YouTube, they're adding commenting filters within the YouTube Studio platform. As you can see here with this nice handy animated GIF here, you can go and you can add filtering for comments that contain questions, for example. So the other good thing is this is also a bit of a learning environment. So, if you're looking for things that contain questions, it might be something that you want to ask your audience, for example, in your video, maybe at the end of the video, and just saying, hey guys, subscribe and, click the bell to get notifications, have some sort of question at the end, and then encourage your audience to write that up as a question in the comments. I think that's very useful.
Yeah. It increases engagement and longevity of the content.
Yeah. And there's quite a few options here. I mean, you have response status. So for example, you can filter ones that you've already responded to. So this way you don't have to go to the comments and then look for them. Okay, well, which one do I actually still need to respond to? Because a lot of times they're nested. And so they're actually hidden.
Yeah.
So they're adding response status. They're adding ones that obviously contain questions. Another thing that also I think is a really interesting one is that the subscriber count is 1,000 up to say 10 million subs. I think that's actually a really good one in a way, because it helps you also, if you're running your YouTube channel, that you can gauge your audience on the type of people you have commenting. So for example, if I'm getting people that are commenting with 1 million or 10 million subs, that tells me I'm reaching a pretty big audience there. If I'm getting a whole bunch of people that have 1K subs or at least 1K, I can look at the number of comments and see how it shrinks if I filter that. So it does also tell me, am I hitting my mark?
Right.
What do you think about that?
I agree. And it, depending on how you want to work, so it can either guide the content, right? If there are people who have less subscribers, then maybe they're just starting out and there's different kind of content that they would want from you versus a larger audience that has a bigger following.
Definitely. And also kind of think about it like this, you are an influencer. When you have a YouTube channel, and I don't want to say like, what people think of, I think, as an influencer, which is like, oh, this person that's going to like get paid a whole bunch of money by a company. I mean, influencer in the fact that you are influencing your audience by having a YouTube channel and by publishing content on that channel. And, what I think is also useful there is, in a way, you're like the torch bearer, basically, for other people that are watching your content. So if they're watching your content, and like they're actually relying on you. So if they've got less than 1,000 subs, for example, it's still worthwhile to respond to them, because otherwise they might just give up on YouTube.
Absolutely.
If you want to be an influencer, I think that's really important. So that's YouTube comment filtering. I mean, I think overall this is a very useful feature. Obviously, as you all know, you do have to use YouTube Studio in order to access this. But again,
I would like that on other platforms too. I hope it works out and people borrow the idea.
Oh, I hope so too. So that's YouTube comment filtering. Where do Phil hasn't joined yet? He's obviously still in some traffic. Where do you want to go next, by the way?
Let's see. What else were we talking about? So we were talking about a bunch of new apps.
So you want to talk apps? You want to talk Pinterest? You want to talk?
Pinterest. Yeah, Pinterest. That's a good idea.
So what do we got going on for Pinterest here?
So they're now giving you education on how to use the tool.
Okay.
And I think that's a great idea. I think it's a great way to get people to use the platform that might not already.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think there's a cost. They're calling it Pinterest Academy. I'm trying to pull it up here, actually. I'm having some fun technical difficulties today, by the way. So I'm trying to pull up the Pinterest Academy for viewers.
I like that you describe it as fun technical difficulties, though.
They're very fun. I was actually wondering, while I'm trying to bring this up, I was actually wondering whether you were going to be like, oh, hey, let's like skip this week's show, because, when you run into technical difficulties, a lot of times people are like, hey, I don't want to deal with this.
But yeah, that's part of the fun.
Let's see. So let me see if I can get it to pull up. Pinterest Academy. Here we go. So Academy.
I mean,
it's basically a way for you to succeed on Pinterest.
I think more.
Do what?
There was something funny with the sound. I wasn't hearing you.
Oh, okay. So go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was saying Pinterest is offering this free training. It's an e-learning tool, obviously, to help you if you're a new business on Pinterest. I think overall, Pinterest is a very, very good platform. I think you hear me say this a lot, but they're always kind of the dark horse in social media. A lot of people, they write off Pinterest as being a social media platform. So I think that, the fact that they're using this academy, I think it's a very good feature, especially for a business who is learning how visual content can really help their business, whether it's driving traffic, whether it's driving new leads, whether it's driving sales. But again, it should never be like trying to drive sales at the start. You have to warm up your audience. They have to actually, know who you are, basically, to get them to actually then start to care about, they have to know who you are, but they also need to care about what it is you're talking about. You can't just say, hey, you know what, go buy my stuff, when they have no relationship with you. So this is the Pinterest Academy. I got that pulled up. What were you saying though about it?
I like the idea of platforms offering information for people so that they can get started if they're not the kind of person that would just jump in and click around and figure it out. So I think it'll help them get more people involved, and maybe they need that.
So how do you think this will work? I mean, as far as will people have to pay for work? Should they have to pay for workshops and things like that? I mean, if they want to learn, like, say, Pinterest, what's your take on that?
Ooh, that's a mixed, I have, obviously, because people pay me to train them in certain platforms. I like that, but I do think a platform should be as helpful as possible to the people who are going to use it and provide free information. I mean, you look at something like Hootsuite, right? So they have a lot of training and even they give you a certification, and I don't know how much of that is free and how much is paid. So in some cases, it can depend on if you have the free version of a platform or you're using their paid version, but it only helps them if they get more people comfortable using the platform.
Right, definitely. And I think that, overall, I think that that all of these platforms should have some sort of training to get people up to speed on them. Like I've got it pulled up right here. So this Pinterest Academy, this free online training, basically it's giving you 5 courses for basic overview of their platform. And then obviously you have options to get to Pinterest narratives. So like learning how do you craft a bit of a Pinterest strategy, the creative inspiration. So like, where do you get your ideas from? The creative strategy. So how do you actually get creative with the visual side of things? Again, that's not talking like, oh, how do I actually use Pinterest for my business? That's a whole different,
Right.
ball of wax. Campaign objectives. So if you want to then, it's basically leveling you up. It's like, oh, by level like 3 or 4, I'm getting into doing some advertising, and then I'm learning about targeting and purchasing ads. So I think those are all useful. And obviously they also have setting up a Pinterest business account. If you're new to this, planning and strategizing a campaign, building and launching campaigns, managing and measuring a campaign. So I think, kind of putting this in perspective. So like if I'm a business just starting out on Pinterest, definitely go take the Pinterest Academy, and you can sign up for that at pinterestacademy.exceedlms.com. So they're actually using a learning management platform. So I'll drop that in the comments. But the part where I think that this can really help is it's not saying, well, hey, you take this one course and you're an expert, at this. It gets you started. And then I think that's where like having, say, a workshop or a one-on-one training can be very useful. A lot of times going through a lot of the basics of, hey, how do I get a Pinterest business account set up? You don't really need to pay for someone else's training necessarily for that. You need the more like the meat. And so I think that that's one thing where like there are basically 2 different courses here, this one, and then you pay for someone else's more advanced training. So I think in a way, this also pushes people forward to get better at taking online trainings. I think, use the ones to get started and then take the more advanced ones from people that can really help you, I think.
I do think that a lot of these online trainings from a platform are designed not just to get people to use the platform, but designed to get them to use the paid product, the advertising, right? So it will lead them towards that. And
definitely, I think
that's a whole different discussion, and as a business, of course, but yeah.
I think that one good thing is, I think that overall, and I think that's a great point. Like, instead of just saying, hey, you need to go sign up for ads and start paying for things, this actually walks you through the process to get you there. Instead of saying, well, hey, hey, you're new to Pinterest, you need to actually start paying for ads. Like, that's a totally wrong approach to take. And we see a lot of people do that with Facebook ads. They sell Facebook ads courses, and it's like, well, you really don't need to jump to Facebook ads. You need to learn how to build an audience first, to then get yourself to actually, then needing some ads as you start to build some traction. You learn who your audience is, how often they're viewing your content, and that sort of thing. So that's the Pinterest Academy, free academy from Pinterest. What topic do you want to go to next, by the way?
Oh, I forgot all the different topics. There were so many.
So we've got we've got Instagram. We've got Instagram. We've got WhatsApp. I think we had a Facebook ads one as well.
Well,
what's your pick?
I think the WhatsApp thing was interesting because.
So what do we have here? What's going on? So
I don't even remember what it was, but that you said that it was something new that I hadn't read about yet.
Okay, so it's WhatsApp. I'll introduce it then, I guess. So WhatsApp is introducing disappearing messages on their platform. So are you a big WhatsApp user?
What's interesting is, no, I find that here in the United States, we use texting more. The only time I use WhatsApp is if I'm reaching out to family that's not in the United States, because it's an easier way to get to them, and they use it all the time. And you were saying something about how businesses use it tremendously outside of the United States, which I found fascinating.
Yes. So, a lot of places we use WhatsApp, if you're overseas, any sort of traveling, a lot of businesses They use WhatsApp primarily as their means of communicating. They're not using Facebook Messenger. They're using WhatsApp. And then if I'm a business, if I'm a large business or even a small business, they're using WhatsApp primarily to communicate with their customers, whether it's to get the hours, whether it's to learn about sales. They're getting them on a WhatsApp group list as well, as a means for them to broadcast out to their audience.
I think for a global company, it's really important to understand the differences and the ways they have to act in different places, right? They can't just assume that they're going to be able to do the same thing everywhere.
Yeah, and the key thing here is that it's a messaging platform. It's not that much different from Facebook Messenger,
right?
LinkedIn, for instance, LinkedIn's messaging piece as well. Like it's not that much different. It's just, hey, I'm just in a new setting and there's a new audience there. And my message, the way I type, for example, does not necessarily change.
Right.
Like, yeah, the icons are a little different. I can have, on Facebook Messenger, some disappearing messages there. They're only, geared towards like maybe say a couple of people. But, again, it's all about adapting to where your audience is at. And I think overall, with this disappearing messages feature, it's the hardest part for me, I think, is if you use WhatsApp a lot, you have to make sure you have notifications on, because if somebody has disappearing messages, you then will not see them. So make sure you have notifications on your device. I think overall, this is, again, it's encouraging you also to get to know, as you mentioned, get to know where your customers spend the most time. If, for example, if you're an immigration lawyer, for example, chances are your audience is going to be on WhatsApp, as utilizing that as a messaging platform. If you're in the States and all your customers are there in the States, WhatsApp, might not have as much value for you, as much utility. But again, you do need to ask your customers that. And that's why I think it's always good to run a survey, for example, with your audience. So ask them, for example, maybe when they sign up for your email list, ask them if they, if there are certain platforms that they primarily use and which ones those are. So you can learn more about your customers and where they spend the most time. And this way you can meet them on the platform.
I think that's an important point, because so many people think they need to be everywhere. And I like to say, be where your customers are. Yeah. So you won't know unless you ask them necessarily. So
definitely. And, and this feature, by the way, it's only being tested on Android at the moment. So if it's a beta version of the app on Android. So, if you're like, hey, I want to use this, you do have to wait until it actually gets rolled out to the main version. But again, it's not that much different from other messaging platforms, such as, you've got Telegram, Facebook Messenger, LinkedIn for messaging. So just keep that in mind. So that's WhatsApp disappearing messages.
And I could see a company using it in an interesting way, say at an event.
Okay. Yeah.
Like first 10 people to come to the booth, get a whatever, or, something to create urgency.
Mm-hmm. I think that's actually a great example. It could be, and you could use this with other messaging platforms as well. Like if you're using, say, Facebook Messenger, but it also encourages your audience, one, if it's WhatsApp and, you're international, definitely hitting the mark there, I think. Two, it also, as you mentioned, encourages a sense of urgency to drive them to your booth. So, it also encourages them to, if they're at the event, to stay connected with you and to stay on top of what's going on. Because again, you want to keep their attention as long as possible. Make sure it's a good prize, I guess, or something if you go to the booth for it. So
not just a pen with your logo on it.
Yes, exactly. A little swag there. So we've talked YouTube, talked Pinterest, we've talked WhatsApp. Where do you want to go next? Do you want to talk about a little Instagram? What are you thinking?
Instagram. Did we already talk about it?
We didn't actually know. They have this new app. It's called Instagram Threads.
Oh yeah. Yet another app.
Yes, another app.
My phone is so filled with apps.
Yes. So what we have going on here, everyone who's watching, we've got this new app. It's called Instagram Threads, and it's basically a camera-first messaging app that helps you stay connected to your close friends. So again, close friends, if you're looking at it from a business perspective, it does not necessarily have to be like, hey, I'm not gonna it's, it's just, oh, my actual friends that I know outside of my business. Again, there's a bit of a line that gets blurred here. When you talk close friends could be your best customers as well. And those customers could become your best friends. You never know.
Yep.
So I wouldn't say stand and say, hey, what, you're a customer, I can't be your friend. Again, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but you kind of have to feel that out. But basically, they've got the separate app. It's a camera first messaging app that basically you can stay connected with your close friends on and make it easy for you to message them, but also make it easier for you to stay in contact with one another on the Instagram platform. What do you think, by the way, about this? Are you a fan of having another app? What do you think?
I do feel like I have so many and I don't remember sometimes, where was that conversation? Was that on Facebook Messenger? Was that on LinkedIn? Was that a text? Was that, but I think it's worth them trying new things, and they probably are trying to get people to stay with their products as opposed to trying out some of these other platforms.
Yeah.
Because you already have a relationship with them. So I might use this rather than something that's similar made by somebody else.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think that's a good point. I mean, with some of these apps, again, I mean, they want to get you in the ecosystem, because once you're in the ecosystem and then they start to, they move things around and whatnot, like, you're not going to leave because you're so heavily invested in the platform. I think that it's going to keep you there.
Exactly.
So, yeah. From a business perspective, what do you think? I mean, this makes it easier for you to quickly share photos and videos instantly, obviously with your close friends. Update is, it obviously gets you out of checking the news feed a lot as well. This reminds me a lot of almost like the list feature that Facebook used to offer. So they used to have a list feature where you could have close friends on Facebook, where I could easily click on this and get a quick rundown on all the people that were marked as close friends without having to search for their content or go directly to their account. What do you think?
I'm just not always sure how easy it will be to move people from one platform to another. So people are very comfortable. There's some group of people that are very comfortable with the platforms they use. That's all they're going to do. They're not going to try something new. And then there are other people who are jumping on the next new platform the minute it comes out. So it sort of depends, who are you trying to engage with?
Yeah. And a couple of things also to keep in mind here. I mean, you've got Instagram Direct. So you now have the Threads app. Think of it, this basically is taking that list feature that Facebook used to have called Facebook Close Friends. They now are calling it Instagram Threads on Instagram. And it's basically a way for you to quickly see photos and videos between people, direct messages. So for example, if you and I were, give an example here for people who are listening and watching. So if you and I, for example, are set as close friends on Instagram, I will see your message in the Threads app. I will also see it though within the Instagram app as well. So that way it's basically, in a way, it's duplicating the content in both places. It does mean it's probably a little more you have to kind of manage, but at the same time, it's helping you separate out, who are the people I don't really know. So this is the Threads app, and then who are the people I really know in the Close Friends app. What do you think about that, by the way? Basically having two separate apps, one for just your close friends and one for basically seeing what's new on Instagram.
So I can't think, ideas business-wise don't immediately come up for me, but I think for personal use, I might like that, right? Yeah. So I might, whatever it is, I might want to be able to quickly communicate with that group of people. And I think we are already used to having separate apps, right? There's a separate messenger app for Facebook as opposed to being on Facebook. So I don't know. I'm going to have to play with it, I think, before I judge. One little thing I noticed is that when you start setting it up, you get to pick the color that the icon is on your phone. And that reminded me a little bit of the time people spend developing their avatar for a game or even for their emoji, right? So not quite as much, but I thought that was an interesting thing that they added.
No, that definitely is. So this is the Instagram Threads app. It's available, by the way, for iOS and Android. Should already be available for you in your device's app store. So go check that out. It's the Instagram Threads app. and chances are it's going to look like very similar to this logo here,
Yep.
but that's the Instagram
Here,
Threads app.
wait, I can show you.
Ah, you have it, yes.
Oh,
look at this.
there it is. I made mine green.
Ah, nice, very nice. So that reminds me of a whole nother app actually that is available.
But, which one?
Looks very Well, from what I saw there, it looked very Snapchat-esque.
Oh,
Maybe?
Yeah. I don't know. They're all kind of becoming one big blur to me at times.
Yeah. So when you downloaded that, did you look up like Threads or did you look up Instagram? So if you look up Threads for Instagram, basically, yeah. You'll be able
if you just start typing Threads, it's one of the first 3 results that comes up.
Yeah, and don't confuse it. There's another app called Threads. It's a
the clothing one.
No, there's one called it's a business communication tool. It'll actually appear underneath it. It's a purple color as well. Don't get it confused with that. But it's called Threads from Instagram, a camera app for close friends. So that's the Threads app from Instagram. So I have a couple. I have a couple more topics, obviously, that we want to discuss, but we also want to respect everyone's time here as well. You've got, I think, meetings with clients. Again, it's also late in the day here for me as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to throw those over in our blog post recap. We're going to throw it into our daily newsletter, actually. So you get that at socialchefs.com/daily. That'll take you to our newsletter sign up, and you'll be able to get our daily email where we basically share, basically try to focus on a particular topic in a daily email, along with a new social media tip as well that we've been including. So that's socialchefs.com/daily. And that'll also get you notify you when we send out our blog post recap as well for Social Chatter episode 212. So we're on to one of my favorite parts of the show, and maybe Phil is going to, I don't know, I'm wondering if Phil's going to come on. We usually do this little behind the scenes dance.
I thought he would pull over and come on through his phone or something.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. But again, also it's about being safe when you're driving. But we're going to talk about 2 tools this week that we think can help you. The first tool, and it's a segment called Tool Time, basically, where we pull up, 2 tools that we think can help you. Sometimes they're apps, sometimes they're productivity tools, sometimes they're training courses, sometimes they're like equipment and things like that. But the first one that we're going to talk about is called Firework, Best Short Videos. Now, this is a free app that is available for you. And it is basically, this is an iOS version of it. But Beth, have you had a chance to play with this, or any initial thoughts on this tool, by the way?
So it feels like it's not anything different than what's already out there, right?
Okay, explain, yes.
So like TikTok, for instance.
Okay.
I don't know if TikTok has enough users yet that people will try something new, and or maybe Firework can overtake them, perhaps.
Okay. Yeah.
So one thing I found interesting is when you set it up, you have to give them your gender and your age. Okay. So I always like to mess with these things to see, if I tell them I'm 21, are they going to show me different content than if I tell them I'm 40 or something? Yeah. So
definitely. I think that's a good point, actually. Very good point. Because just because the app, asks you for your age, for example, it doesn't mean you have to give them the exact information for that. Obviously, like if you're over their age, their limit of like say 18 or whatever, if there's a minimum requirement, that doesn't, make sure you follow that part. But hey, if they need to know like, hey, am I male or female or whatever, pay attention to that stuff, because again, I mean, it's somebody coming up with an app that they're going to try to then sell to somebody else for the most part. But what we have here, basically, as you mentioned, it's a way to make short videos very similar to TikTok. So for those of you who've been following TikTok, it's a very, very, very large, basically platform for sharing short videos as well. One thing I'm noticing is that the trend is things are getting shorter. I mean, it used to be like TikTok came out and like, it really hasn't had but a few months to kind of like really take hold. And now, oh, wow, there's another app that's doing virtually the same thing called Firework. But this one is for creating short videos. For me personally, as a business, the way that I see these apps being very useful, I don't necessarily have to use the platform. I like it when they let me use some of their features, their filters and things like that to record a video. And then I save it to my camera roll and then I can upload it to wherever I want. Personally, I like that a lot better. The one benefit, obviously, to doing everything within the app is that it will, instead of like, hey, I record this video and then I have to remember to post it, I basically can just record the video and walk myself through it and post it on the platform. So you have Firework, a free app. And what I also thought was pretty useful, and you kind of see that in the screenshot, is if you take the video and like say it's horizontal or it's vertical, you can rotate it to get a whole different view. This reminds me of Snapchat Spectacles. Version 1, for example, would take a circular video and you could rotate your phone and it would fill out the screen. So I think that's a very useful feature. It's a way to, in a way, kind of like, hey, can you guess where I'm at? And then do a, maybe a horizontal video to give somebody, more information about what you're doing. So encourage some engagement. But what any other thoughts on this app overall?
Well, I am going to play with it because I love exploring new apps to see if there's a use for it. I find that my clients like to be further behind on adoption, and let's see, how people are using it. Are my clients using it? That kind of thing. But I like to jump in and just try all these things. So
definitely. And, and overall, again, it's a free app. Download it, test it out. A couple of things by the way, I will caution everybody when you do go to sign up, a couple of things I wasn't thrilled with. Didn't like the fact that I had to either sign up with Facebook or I think it was Instagram or my Google account. There was no option to say, hey, what's your email address? Personally, I'd like to give you my email address, even if it goes to spam or wherever it goes, versus giving you access to my social media profiles. I realize you want that data, but it's, you have to also look at what's best for the customer, and the customer doesn't necessarily want to give you that data. You do need to provide enough options. So that's one thing I wasn't thrilled about, but overall free app, worth trying and seeing, if that's where your, if that's some content that your audience might like.
Yeah.
And I think, Beth, you mentioned earlier, real quick, you mentioned that your audience really liked, we talked briefly about some of, how people might be somewhat behind with some of these platforms. What do you suggest about this? Should a business just start broadcasting videos on Firework, and kind of post and pray basically that people are going to see it and find it interesting, or what?
To me, it's more, who are you trying to engage with, and are they there, right? So if this is so brand new, it's not likely. You should be aware of it, but you don't necessarily need to jump on right away. Or the opposite, you could jump on right away, because then you're going to be in the forefront, right? You're going to be the one that gets the attention. But for most people, how much time do you have in the day to explore these things? Let other people explore it, see I think I heard this story, and I don't remember the actual chains, but 2 fast food chains. There's one that always does all the research about where to open a new store, and then their competitor just will buy a spot across the street or down the block. So that first group spent the money and the time and the research. Yeah. So you have to kind of balance that, I think.
I think that's a really good point. So that's the first app we have for everybody this week. Now the second app, I'm going to go ahead and pull this one up as well. This second app it's called DuetCam. And this is a pretty neat little app. Basically what it does is it shoots video from the front and the back of your device, your iOS device in this case. So front and back video recording to newer iPhones. What do you think about this one?
I am excited about this one. So I started playing with it just to see what it would do. It makes it easy to do something like that wherever you are. Sometimes, say, somebody will use Zoom or other tools to be able to show something on their screen or what they're looking at and see their face. But to be able to do this anywhere, anytime, I think there's a lot of opportunity there.
Definitely. Now, so I know there's a couple requirements for the iPhone XR, the XS, the XS Max, obviously the new 11 and 11 Pro and 11 Max Pro, and obviously iPad Pro as well. to be able to use the two cameras at once. Have you had a chance to play with this? I know it's a $3 app, but have you had a chance to play with it?
So I did, but what keeps happening now is it keeps quitting. So I was going to try to do it right now and do the screen. And so I was able to do a couple just playing with it, but it keeps quitting. So I'm going to probably get rid of it and try to re-download it. Maybe that'll help.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, if you do run into issues when you install an app, sometimes you need to either, first thing I would do is personally, I would just restart the device completely and then try launching the app. And then if it doesn't work, it keeps opening and crashing at that point, I would delete the app, reinstall it, and then try it again.
Yeah.
A lot of times that can fix your issue that you're having. But overall, very cool.
Super easy. Yeah. When I did do it, it was so easy. You could decide which was the larger image, either what you were looking at or you. And yeah, I think there's potential there.
Definitely. And, a couple of things here. So like, for example, in a way, it's almost like a bit of a vlogging camera. So for example, if somebody wants to go to an event, if I'm a business, what I could see doing is like somebody goes to an event and they're recording some video and they're actually commenting on it. So you can actually see the person's, reaction, for example, versus just like, oh, hey, I'm hearing they sound like they're excited, but I can't really tell because some people have a really good speaking voice and, they're kind of good at masking that. But you can flip the cameras around so you can do the front-facing camera, and have it where like, hey, you're actually narrating something, or you can have the back-facing camera as well. But a lot of utility here, I think, for sure, for a business. Definitely with this app, and it's $2.99. Also great for Instagram stories. So that way, you can. I think you've got a really useful feature there as well for Instagram stories.
Yeah.
Recording with two cameras, saving it to your camera roll, and then using that for other things as well. This reminds me of like when people, for example, want to do a screen. They want to do like a screen recording on their like desktop, for example, or their laptop. A lot of times people record their screen and they'll have, like a little circle or square or something like that in the corner. Very useful feature for narrating somebody through a tutorial. The thing is, your phone, your mobile device has the same functionality as well. So you do have like a screen recording feature, so you could use it for that possibly. But I like the idea to be able to record both sides of the camera. A lot of times that's hard to do. So hence why you need new iPhones. But that's DuetCam, and it's a $2.99 app. So I mentioned, obviously, we've got more topics for you all on Social Chatter, episode 212. But I'm going to give Beth a couple minutes here. Beth, do you have any, what's the best place for people to connect with you, I guess, at?
Let's see. Well, LinkedIn, of course, is my favorite place. So linkedin.com/in/Beth Granger. Okay, but very good. I'm on Twitter, Beth Granger Says. Oh, there you go. You put it up.
Very smart. Look at that. Yes.
You read my mind.
Yes, and I'll make sure you put the link to your LinkedIn profile as well in the comments as well at some point for people watching the replay here on Facebook. So there's that. How about a website? Do you have a website, or how do you?
Well,
how do you
kind of like having a gym membership, but I don't really use my website at the moment. I mean, I have a single page, but everywhere else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. Very easy. And I know, like, if you Google Beth Granger, I know you'll come up a lot. You have strong SEO presence, so you'll come up a lot on Google Images. I think a lot of your content is also at the top of the search. So do you have any tips, any particular tip you want to share with viewers this week?
Ooh,
like,
tip.
It could be anything. It could be like, hey, you know what? It could be a LinkedIn tip. It could be a social media tip. It could be a business tip. What do you think?
So I would say here's a tip about LinkedIn, because of course it is my favorite platform. Your headline, the text under your name. Mm-hmm. A lot of people will have that be their job title.
Okay.
To me, it's so much more important or valuable. I think of it as your 120 character elevator pitch.
Yes.
You can say so much more than just, like somebody works for a bank, to say VP at Citibank doesn't mean anything. Right? Do you provide loans? Do you provide guidance? What do you do? So there's more space, and think about it that way.
Very good. Yeah. And to that point, I mean, mine, for instance, says award-winning social business manager and social media strategist. Like that's my tagline basically. But you're right. Like you do need to go in and change that. And I think you could do that. I think right on the LinkedIn profile, right? Do you have a screen share that you want to actually? don't know if you have the screen share up or the ability to screen share. If you want to.
But I'm not logged into anything else.
Okay.
But really, it's just at the top section of your profile. You click on the little blue pencil, and the little secret: don't tell anybody. On desktop, it limits you to 120 characters. Okay. But if you happen to need 1 or 2 more characters, if you do it on mobile, it lets you. I don't know why. That could change tomorrow, but don't tell anyone.
That is very good, actually.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm going to pull up my LinkedIn profile.
Okay, good.
Here, so we can kind of walk people through here how to do this. So let me see. So if you've got your LinkedIn profile pulled up here, what you basically will see here is this tagline here, and then we're going to go and we're going to click this pencil icon.
Yep.
And then we can go in and we can change this little tagline, the headline.
Yep.
So a lot of times this defaults, right? I think this defaults to your last job, I think. Is that right?
Most current job title, yeah.
So something easy to go and change. Definitely, I think that's a really good tip, by the way, to go and share with viewers. So I want to thank you for Phil's not going to be joining us, I guess. I think he's still stuck in traffic, but I want to thank you. Yeah. So I want to thank you for joining us this week on Social Chatter episode.
Thank you. So much fun.
Definitely. So by the way, viewers, definitely make sure you get in touch with Beth. Specializes in LinkedIn. You know how passionate Phil is about LinkedIn. So be sure you connect with Beth.
And if they're in the United States, tonight, 7:00 Eastern time, I'm going to be going live with my guest, Rob Balasabas from Thinkific.
Cool. We had Rob on last week, actually, on
Perfect.
11. So
he's everywhere.
Yes. For those of you who want to get the blog post recap, socialchefs.com/SC212. That'll be published tomorrow. If you want last week's, it's SC211. That's with Rob Balasabas as well. Join us next week. I think it's Thursday, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook or YouTube. We're going to have Kate Hassett on as our guest. But I want to thank you for spending some time this week with us, Beth.
Thank you.
We'll have to have you back on as well. But for those of you watching, blog post recap, as well as the podcast episode going out tomorrow. Thanks a lot.
Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.